Good day, everyone. I am Aurelio Jose Gomez, and our topic today is all about developmental reading. First, the reading. Reading can be defined in many different ways. It is a process of putting meaning to the text. It is a process of getting meaning from the text. It is a psychologistic guessing game. It's a key to unlock the word of enlightenment. It is a basic tool for learning in all areas. Common to all definition above is the concept of meaning. Reading and reading comprehension are inseparable. So reading is important. Your more empathic and knowledgeable stimulate your imagination. Reading is essential serve as a building block for learning. Regardless the school subject, it is a language, art, or even math. In daily life, the need to read things such as street sign or prescription proof reading is also an important life skills. The skills of reading is one of the most important we teach our children. It is a life skills that enables them to extend their concepts, gain information as a basic for other learning, and to gain access to magical world or fantasy. Developmental reading as a task is different from different to walk or talk. Couple maturation, they will naturally develop. Reading is a learn in a different way. Many factors should be considered like mental ability, environmental stimulation, or etc. Developmental is a sense that reading skills are developed from simple to complex, from the early part of life until adulthood. Developmental reading is a branch of reading instruction that is designed to support literacy in a variety of contexts to improve comprehension or decoding skills. This instructional approach helps bridge gaps in reading skills so that students are better equipped to engage with more advanced content. A developmental reading course will help you become better prepared and equipped with the skills and strategy necessary for reading college level material. This course help students understand the tool necessary for college success. Next is the purpose of reading. First is the informational reading. Second is receptional or pleasure reading. Third is functional reading or public use. Informational reading informational thick is a subset of large category of nonfiction. Its primary purposes is to inform the reader about the natural or social world. Different from fiction and other form of nonfiction, informational text does not utilize character. Example of informational text is biographies, reports, and essays. Next is recreational or pleasure reading. It is a free vocabulary reading. It is selected and independent reading materials for personal and social purposes. Example is social media, blogs, and websites. Third is functional reading or public use. Functional reading is the capability to read a newspaper, sign to check a write of short postcard, at least what essential and independential precondition of functioning of 19th and 20th century society.
Good day everyone, my name is Juleka Cabrera, so I will be discuss the continuation of our report, which is the developmental reading. So my topic to be discussed is the three main groups of reading theories. So there are three main groups of reading theories. Those are bottom up, top down, and interactive. So the first that we discuss for today is the bottom up. So what is bottom up? So bottom up is the depicts reading starting with the input of some graphic signals or stimulus. The role of the reader is to get meaning from the text based on the stimulus or words used. So bottom up processing happens when someone tries to understand language by looking at individual meanings or grammatical characteristic of the most basic units of the text. For example, sounds for a listening or words for a reading. So and moves from this to trying to understand the whole text. So bottom up defects is also called data driving processing. So because this is called data driving processing because it is just that driving by the data that we collect with our senses. So bottom up processing begins with the retrieval of sensory information from our external environment to build perception based on the current input of sensory information. So the next that we discuss is the top down. So what is top down? Top down of depicts reading beginning with the cognitive processes occurring in the reader's mind as he or she reads. The role of the reader is to give meaning to the text based on the information already held within the reader's store of prior knowledge. This is called concept driving processing. So a top-down reading model is a reading approach that emphasizes that the readers bring to the text. It contends that reading is driven by meaning and proceeds from whole to part. So in other words, top-down processing happens when the readers activate his or her knowledge to facilitate comprehending the text. So top-down processing is the interpretation of incoming information based on the prior knowledge, experience, and expectation. So the last main group of reading theories is interactive. So interactive of depicts reading as a process of constructing the meaning through the dynamic interaction among the reader's existing knowledge. The information suggested by the written language and the context of the reading situation. So an interactive reading approach enables children to consistently challenge, but also encourage them to use that they already know. So one way of offering interactive reading instruction is through guided reading. So in other words, the interactive theory of reading claims that readers have an automatic recognition of words, and ideas that tap into their lower level comprehension processing, but eventually bring in the logic and knowledge of the topic and the word that tap into their higher level comprehension processing. So that would be my report, and thank you.
So good day everyone, I am Jimari Mugol and I'm going to discuss the different stages of reading development. So stage 1, this is emergent literacy. So this is ranges from birth up until to 5 years old. So in stage 1, they learn primarily through direct sensory contact and physical manipulation perception based conclusions. So they experience difficulty putting experiences into words. So rapid language growth, they explore writing the form of scribbles, letter-like forms, or invented spelling. So in this stage, this is the lowest stage or the growing stage. So from here, they can murmur things. They can they can say something but through sign language. So they cannot explain some words, they cannot explain what they wanted to say. However, they started to learn. So another one is they love being read too, but they cannot hear their favorite tales often enough. So I think if you have a brother or sister, you will understand. So I noticed from my cousins that they love they love to hear some stories like fairy tales. So they wanted their mothers to read them some story, so they will listen. So another thing is they like the elements of rhyme, repetition, and alliteration. So in this stage, they wanted to hear some baby songs. So I think most mothers get songs from YouTube. So this is here the primary stage, the first stage. So the second stage will be early reading, which is from kindergarten and first grade. So this is here when they started to learn officially from their teachers, kindergarten and grade 1. So in here, they manipulate objects and ideas mentally, they can reason logically, have difficulty comprehending underlying principles, have evolving graphs of the alphabetic principles. So in this early stage, since they are learning from their teachers, so now they can distinguish the alphabet letters, so from E to Z. So also the sounds, like the sounds of A, the sounds of B. So since they are learning, so their teacher will teach them some basic form of learning. So stage 3 will be growing independence. So this is from grades 2 and 3. So they develop evolving fluency. In here, they can reason out fluently, they can speak fluently, they can read, I think, fluently also. However, this is depending on the child, how they grow. So they become more appreciative of stories involving the lives of others. They can judge their reading effectively and personally rather than using standards. So we have difficulty explaining why they like a selection. So I think stage 3 there are still difficulty in explaining some things. However, it can be learned and it can be improved through through the highest level. So and in stage 3 it is more in specific and they can develop fluency in speaking or reading. So they can already explain, however not like very to the highest level, but they can explain. So stage 4 will be reading to learn, which is from grades 4 through 6. So grade 4, 5, and 6. So in here, you have a wide application of word attack and comprehension skills. Much greater emphasis is placed on grasping informational text. They have a vocabulary and conceptual load increase significantly. Words in listening vocabulary. So in the stage 4, so their comprehension skills is widened, is broadened because of what they learned from the stage 1 up to 3. So in stage 4, they already have a widened comprehension. They have a widened vocabulary. They can understand things. They can explain things more deeply. So they can listen to some words and they can understand easily. So that's the stage 4. So reading to learn. The last stage will be stage 5, which is abstract reading. So this is from grades 7 up until grade 8, grade 9, grade 10. So they can construct multiple hypotheses. Evaluations of readings become more elaborate and reflect an involving set of standards for judging. So in this stage, they can now create multiple hypotheses. They can now judge accordingly. They will know what a good reading text is all about, what a bad reading text is all about. So they can reflect on what they have read, if it's for a daily application of lives or if it's for whatever reasons. So now they can understand, they can comprehend in because they are already in the highest level. So this is the stage 5 is all about. So I think that's my report is all about the 5 stages of development reading. So that will be all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Andrea Calgas and today I am going to continue the discussion about reading comprehension and the levels of comprehension. So reading comprehension is the capacity to perceive and understand the meanings of communicated by the text. So in reading, it is not just purely reading the book or reading something, but you will also comprehend or understand the message being conveyed on that text. So there are 4 levels of comprehension. First is literal. It is reading the lines. So, in order for you to understand the message, you have to read the lines of the written text. Next is interpretative, reading between the lines. So sometimes you will not just going to read line by line, but you will also collect the important information for you to comprehend or understand the message. Third one is critical. It is reading beyond the line. So when you are a wide reader, you will not directly read line by line, but sometimes you will just point out, as I have said earlier, that you will just point out some important details for you to understand the message or the text being written. And lastly is creative or evaluative. It is means that you are going to look for the sources or another sources of the book you have read, and you will also research why does the author wrote that book, or you will also look for sources that might help you to deeper understand the meaning of the text. So reading comprehension skills, there are 2 things that you should consider for you to be a reader. So first is the you can locate answers to what, how, and why questions. And the second one is you can be able to demonstrate the knowledge of the story grammar. So in this, you can be able to identify the setting, the character, the plot, and etc. So, in getting the main point, there are 5 things you consider. First is distinguish big ideas from small group. Second, give appropriate title. Third, identify case sentences. Fourth, skim the general idea about on what the material is. And 5, find the topic sentence. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning everyone. I am Danilo Mundares Tubanho, Basic 2 English. So this morning, we will talking about the 6 categories of reading questions you are sure to face. So number 1, main idea questions that test your ability to find the central thought of the passage or to judge its significance often take the following word. Number 1, the main point of the passage is two. So it's really important to identify the main point and the main idea of that specific topic being presented or being there in that specific part. Alright, so second is the passage is primarily concerned with. The third one is the author's primary purpose in this passage. So what are the purpose of the author in writing this kind of topic or writing this kind of poem or whatever topic that being presented by the teacher. And the next one we have the chief them of the passage can the best describe us. And which of the following titles best describes the content of the passage? Which of the following statement best expresses the main idea of the passage? So these are the words, or these are the following questions that are passage. There is a possibility that we can face this one in our future as a future educator. We can there's a possibility or there's a chance that we can face this kind of questions. All right. The next one, we have defining specific details, questions that test your ability to understand what the author states explicitly are often worded. So we have, according to the author states all the following exact. According to the passage, the chief characteristics of the subject is which of the following statements is or are best supported by the passage, which of the following is not cited in the passage as evidence of. So those are the questions and possible questions and finding specific details. So there's are the following questions that can be, or there's a possibility that na namugawa siya sa mga questionnaires or whatever. Next one, drawing inferences. Questions that test your ability to go beyond the author's explicit statement and see what these statements imply may be worded. So we have, it can be inferred from the passage. The passage suggests that the author would support which of the following views. The author implies that the author apparently feels that according to the passage, it is likely that the passage is most likely directed toward the audience of which of the following statements about can be inferred from the passage. So these are also the another possible questions in drawing inferences. So these are the possible questions that we can face or we can face during when we are talking about the drawing inferences question. So in the next one, we have tone attitude questions that test your ability to sense an author or character's emotional state often take the form. Number one, we have the author attitudes to the problem can be the best describe us. Which of the following best describe the author's tone in the passage? The author's tone in the passage is that of the person's attempting to. The next is the author presentation is marked by the tone of. The passage indicates that the author experienced the feeling of. So these are the possible questions of tone attitude. So it's really important that in a specific story or poem, we should identify what emotion or what tone is being applied in that specific poem or specific story and being applied by the author or by the writer of that specific poem or stories. Alright. The next one, we have determining the meaning of words. From their context, questions assess your ability to work out the meaning on unfamiliar words from their context often are worded. So it's really important in a specific story or poem, we should identify the difficult words, not the unfamiliar words, in order for us to get the idea, in order for us to understand more about the story. Alright. Number one, we have as it is used in the passage, the term that best be describe us. The phrase is used in the passage to mean that in the passage, the word means the author uses the phrase to describe. And the last one, we have technique questions that test your ability to recognize passage, method, or the organization or technique often are worded. So number one, we have which of the following best describe the developing of this passage. The second one, we have in presenting the arguments, the author does all the following except the relationship between the second paragraph and the first paragraph can the best describe us. The next one, we have the passage, the author makes the central point primarily by. And the last one, we have the organization of the passage can best describe us. So these are also the following questions and techniques. These are the following questions. So, of course, it's very important to, in this kind of questions, it's very important to know what kind of method being applied by the writer of this poem or a story in order for us to identify, in order for us to get the idea or the main point of that specific topic. So that would be my report for this morning. I am Danilo Dumanhog once again. Thank you for your listening.
One. So, good day everyone. My name is Mitch Di Colongon and I will be continue our report. So, read the following ethnic passage and apply this tactic. So Louis Malo Jones is one example of an answer, and Louis Malo Jones is one example of an answer to charge that there are no Black American or female American artists to include in a art history textbook and classes. Beginning her formal art education at School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, Louise Jones found herself strongly attracted to design rather than fine arts. After teaching for a while, he went to Paris to study on the advice of the sculptor Meta Warwick Fuller. So, it was in Paris that she first felt free to paint. Following her return to this country in 1938, Jones had an exhibit at the Vaux Gallery in Boston, a major breakthrough for a Black artist at that time. Her work during this period consisted of excellent impressionist scenes of Paris. It was not until early 1940s, after she met the Black aesthetician Ilian Lack, that she began to paint works like Mob Victim, which is explicitly dealt with her own background as a Black American. Later in the 50s, she went often to Haiti, which had yet influence on her style. Then she sabbatical lived in Africa again, changed her imagery, ended the scope of this distinguished artist's career. So well spans the development of 20th century art that her work could be a textbook in itself. Now let's proceed to the questions. So now look at questions on this passage. It is good example of a main idea questions. The passage primarily focuses on the A. Influence of Louise Jones on other artists. B. Recognition given to Louise Jones for her work. C. Experience that influenced the work of Louise Jones. Or D. Obstacles that Louise Jones surmounted in her career, techniques that characterized the work of Louise Jones. So,
Look at the opening and summary sentences of the two paragraphs that make up to the passage. Louise Malo Jones is one example of Black or female American artist to include in a art history textbook and classes. It was in Paris she felt free to paint. Indeed, the scope of her career so well spans the development of 20th century art. Note particularly the use of signal word ended to call your attention to the author's point. Louise Jones has had a vast range of experience that have contributed to her work as an artist. The correct answer is choice C. Why? So choice A is incorrect. The passage talks about influence of Louise Jones, not of Louise Jones' influence to others. So choices B is incorrect also. The passage mentions recognition given to Jones only in passing. Choices D is also incorrect. There is nothing in the passage to support it. So that's why the choice C is the correct answer. So let's try to other questions on the author's technique based on the previous passage about Louise Malo Jones. Which of the following best summarize the relationship of the first sentence to the rest of the passage? So A. Assertion followed by supporting evidence. B. Challenge followed by debate, pro, and con. So C. Prediction followed by analysis. D. A specific instance followed by generalization. E. Object reporting followed by personal reminiscence. So the correct answer is choice A. Why? The author makes an assertion, a passage statement about Jones' importance, and then proceed to back it up with specific details for her career. Choice B is incorrect.
There is no debate for and against the author thesis or point Jones. The only details given support that point. Choice C is also incorrect. The author does not predict or foretell something that is going to happen. The author asserts or states positively something that is an accomplished fact. Choice D is also incorrect. Why? The author opening general assertion is followed by specific details to support it, not the reverse. Choice E is also incorrect. The author shares no personal memories or reminiscence of Jones. The writing is object throughout. So let's proceed to the third question on the Jones passage is a title question. Note how it resembles questions on the passage purpose or main idea. Which of the following is the best for the passage? A. Unsung Black Artist of America. B. A Hard Road to Who? The Struggles of Louis Jones. C. Locke and Jones, Two Black Artistic Pioneers. D. African and Haitian's Influence on Louis Melo Jones. E. The Making of an Artist, Louis Melo Jones. Of the titles suggested, choice E is the best answer. Why? The passage refers to the many and varied experiences that have made Jones an important figure in the world of art. Following her progress step by step, it portrays the making of an artist. So let's proceed to the other passage. So read the following scientific passage and apply this technique. So prostaglandins are short-lived hormone-like substances made by most cells in the body after injury or shock. They are responsible for a number of psychological reactions. Prostaglandins have been shown to influence blood pressure, muscle contraction, and blood coagulation are involved in producing pain, fever, and inflammation. When released platelets, minute death. Two Black Artistic Pioneers. The African and Haitian's Influence on Louis Melo Jones. E. The Making of an Artist, Louis Melo Jones. Of the titles suggested, choice E is the best answer. Why? The passage refers to the many and varied experiences that have made Jones an important figure in the world of art. Following her progress step by step, it portrays the making of an artist. So let's proceed to the other passage. So read the following scientific passage and apply this technique. So prostaglandins are short-lived hormone-like substances made by most cells in the body after injury or shock. They are responsible for a number of psychological reactions. Prostaglandins have been shown to influence blood pressure, muscle contraction, and blood coagulation are involved in producing pain, fever, and inflammation. When released platelets, minute deaths in the blood, a prostaglandin derivative called thromboxane makes the platelets clamp together and thus initiates clotting. In 1971, John Vane, a British researcher, discovered that aspirin interferes with the synthesis of prostaglandins. Scientists now know that aspirin relieves pain by inactivating cyclooxygenase, an enzyme that aids in initiating the synthesis of prostaglandins. When scientists realized that aspirin can also interfere with clotting, they began to wonder whether it could help prevent heart attacks and strokes, which are often caused by blood clots that block arteries in the chest and neck. Studies now indicate that low daily dose aspirin can cut the risk of the second heart attack by about 20% of the risk of the second stroke by nearly half. It seems logical to assume that if the drug can prevent second heart attacks, it can also ward off an attack that first time around. Therefore, many doctors recommended an aspirin tablet every other day to people who have high blood pressure or other symptoms that increase the risk of heart attacks. So let's proceed to the according to the passage, prostaglandins play a role in all following except the A. Clotting of a blood, B. Sensation of pain, C. Contraction of muscle, D. Manufacture of platelets, E. Inflammation of tissue. So the answer of this will be tackle of the next reporter, Miss Carelio. That's all my report. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Genevilia G. Carrillo, and this is the continuation of Miss De Colon's report, which is the passage about the role of prostaglandins. So, the question is that, according to the passage, prostaglandins play a role in all of the following except the A. Clotting of blood, B. Sensation of pain, C. Contraction of muscles, D. Manufacture of platelets, and E. Inflammation of tissue. So take a look of the given question. It contains the word except. So to answer the questions like this, you must go through each answer choice in turn by checking to see if you can find it supported in the passage. And if you can find support for it, then you must roll it out, or you must cross it down. And when you find an answer choice without support in the passage, then that's the answer you want. So, the last two sentences in the first paragraph are the key to this question. These two sentences cite the physiological reactions caused by prostaglandins. Let's now check each of the answer choice against the information in these sentences. So, let's start from the choice A, which is the clotting of blood. It is incorrect because prostaglandins influence blood coagulation or clotting. Note that the use of clotting as synonym for coagulation rather than the passage original wording. So, let's now proceed to the choice B, which is a sensation of pain. Choice B is still incorrect because prostaglandins are involved in producing pain. And choice C is still incorrect because prostaglandins still influence muscle contraction. And choice E, which is the inflammation of tissue is still incorrect as prostaglandins are involved in producing inflammation. So it is the rules of prostaglandins. So the choice that I didn't mention is the choice D, which is manufacture for platelets. So choice D is the correct answer because it is not a role of prostaglandins, and even if prostaglandins do have an influence on platelets, they play a role in causing platelets to clump or gather together, but not in manufacturing. When asked to make inferences, base your answers on what the passage implies, not what it states directly. In language, in thought, and action, Isil Hayakawa defines an inference as a statement about the unknown made on the basis of the known. Inference questions require you to use your own judgment, so you must not take anything directly stated by the author as an inference, but instead, you must look for clues in the passage that you can use in coming up with your conclusion, and you should choose as your answer a statement which is a logical development of the information the author has provided. Let us now try this fairly easy inference question based on the previous passage about prostaglandins. The passage suggests that Which of the following would be most likely to initiate the production of prostaglandins? A. Taking aspirin. B. Spraining an ankle. C. Climbing stairs. D. Flexing a muscle. Or E. Running a fever. So the answer of this question is choice B, which is spraining an ankle. The justification for choice B as an answer, it comes in the opening sentence, which states that prostaglandins are produced in response to injury or shock. Choice spraining ankle is an example of an injury. As such, it is likely to initiate or set into motion the production of prostaglandins, and none of the other choices is an example of an injury or shock. Thus, you can logically infer they are likely to start prostaglandin production going. Taking an aspirin, in fact, would interfere with or block prostaglandin production. Only choice B is logical to suggest. Let us now read this fiction passage taken from the novel The Heart of the Matter by Graham Greene. "Imagine 40 days in the boats," cried Mrs. Parrot. "Everything over the river was still and blank. The French behaved well this time at least," Dawson remarked. "They've only brought in the dying," the doctor retorted. "They could have done less." Dawson exclaimed and struck at his hand. "Come inside," Mrs. Parrot said. "The windows are knitted." The stale air was heavy with the coming rains. "There are some cases of fever," said by the doctor, "but most are just exhaustion. The worst disease, it's what most of us die of in the end." Mrs. Parrot turned a knob. Music from the London Orpheum filtered in. Dawson shifted uncomfortably. The Worth Leader organ moaned and boomed. It seemed to him outrageously immodest. Wilson came in to welcome from Mrs. Parrot. "A surprise to see you, Major Dawson." "Hardly, Wilson," Mr. Parrot injected. "I told you he'd be here." Dawson looked across at Wilson and saw him blush at Parrot's betrayal, so too that his eyes gave the lie to his youth. "Well," sneered Parrot, "any scandals from the big city?" Like a Huguenot imagining room, he built up a picture of frivolity, viciousness, and corruption. "We bush folk live quietly." Mrs. Parrot's mouth stiffened in the effort to ignore her husband in his familiar part. She pretended to listen to the old Venice melodies. "None," Dawson answered, watching Mrs. Parrot with pity. "People are too busy them what work is." This question will be answered and will be presented by the next reporter, which is Miss Lilibet Kamangkas.
Hello everyone, my name is Lilibet Kamangkas, and I'm going to continue the discussion of Miss Carrillo report. After reading the passage, so we need to answer this question. The evidence in the passage suggests that the story most likely takes place A. On a boat during a tropical storm, B. At a hospital during a wartime blackout, C. In a small town in France, D. Near a rice plantation in the tropics. E. Among a group of people en route to a large Asian city. So go through the answer choices one by one. So remember that in answering inference question, you must go beyond the obvious to look for logical implication of what the author says. So the choice D, that is located to a tropical rice plantation, that is the right response on the question. So it is implied by a number of lines in the chapter, including Pirot's allusion to Basque folk, people who live in the tropical jungles or other comparable areas of uninhabited wildness, Pirot's remarks about the labor-intensive nature of rice cultivation, and references to fever and impending rains. Choice E is incorrect because the people rescued have been in the boats for 40 days. So the story itself is not set on a boat. B is the incorrect answer because nothing in the paragraph suggests that it is take place during a wartime blackout, despite the doctor's presence, the mention of dying patients, and Dawson's implication that people abroad are worried about a war. So C is the incorrect answer because nothing in the story suggests that it takes place in France, a country in Europe that is not known for its uncleared wilderness or tropical rains despite the fact that France are named. A is incorrect also because nothing in the passage suggests that these individuals are traveling somewhere else. So Wilson also couldn't rationally claim to be shocked by Dawson's presence if they were traveling together. Okay, next question. Based on the lines of 5 and 6, 10 and 12 in the passage, that is indicates that he is basically A. Unselfish, B. Magnanimous, C. Indifferent, D. Rich in patience, A. Without illusion. So, take note of the doctor's use of the negative phrases only and hardly. So the doctors is disparaging or making light of what the French have done for the boat passengers who are dying from weariness after a 40-day journey. The doctor is responding angrily to Dawson's compliment about the how well behaved the French were. So go through the answer choices one by one to see which choice comes closest to matching your sense of the doctor's tone. A is the incorrect answer because nothing in the paragraph expressly implies that he was being selfish, only that he was irritable. B is incorrect answer because the doctor comes out as critical, irritated, and short-tempered. He harbors bitterness over the victim's lack of attention. He doesn't have the air of a gracious, forgiving man. C is the incorrect answer because the doctor is not heartless. He wouldn't be so sharp in his critique of Dawson's innocent remark if he didn't care. And the choice D is also incorrect because the doctor is quick to counter Dawson, quick to criticize the French. Impatience, not patience, distinguishes him. So the correct answer is choice E. The doctor is without illusions. Unlike Dawson, he cannot comfort himself with the illusion that things are going well. He has no illusions about life or death. Most of us, he points out, unsentimentally die or of exhaustion in the end.
Good day, everyone. I am Hazel Joy Sakian de la Torre, and I am going to discuss the continuation of our topic, which is all about developmental reading. So, critical reading should be critical just because it's in print doesn't mean it is right. Fact-oriented, give the facts and convince me that they are the relevant ones. Analytic, how was the work had been organized? What strategies has the writer used? Open-minded, be prepared to listen to different points of view. Do not be restricted by personal biases. Questioning, what other conclusions could be supported by the evidence? Creative, what are some entirely different ways of looking at the problem or issue? Willing to take a stand, is the argument convincing? What is my position on the issue? One who shows the ability to separate fact from opinion, recognizes propaganda techniques, compares different sources of information, recognizes important missing information, draws inferences that are not explicitly stated, and identifies the author's background and purpose. In critical reading, the reader can apply a certain processes, models, questions, and theories that result in enhanced clarity and comprehension. However, critical reading is a reading with a purpose of critical examination of the text and its ideas. For further explanation, this is a close, careful reading of a text that is undertaken in order to understand it fully and assess its merits. So, it is not simply a number of skimming of a text of reading for plot points. Rather, critical reading requires that you read attentively and thoughtfully, taking into an account the text structure, purpose, and audience, among other characteristics. Another is creative reading. Must use his or her cognitive processes to develop ideas that are unique, useful, and worthy of further elaboration. Can discover a new or improved solution to a problem or a set of new ideas. Can organize ideas in different ways and make unusual comparisons. Must not be inhibited by conformity, censorship, rigid education, and desire to find an answer quickly. So, again, creative reading is defined as reading for implied and impaired meanings, appreciate reactions, and critical evaluation. So, the act of critical reading goes beyond literal comprehension to demand that the reader produce fresh, original ideas not explicitly stated in the reading material. So the readers becomes an active participants and adds to what the author has written. Metacognitive reading. Being aware of one's mental processes such that one can monitor, regulate, and direct them to a desired end. Having the ability to think about and control on learning. Practicing self-regulation and monitoring comprehension by answering the following questions. Are there any words I don't understand? Is there any information that doesn't agree with what I already know? Are there any ideas that do not fit together because I can't tell who or what is being talked about? Are there any ideas that do not fit together because I can't tell how their ideas are related? Are there any ideas that don't fit together because I think the ideas are contradictory? Is there any information missing or not clearly explained? So the term metacognition, it refers to one's understanding of any cognitive process. The context of reading is usually understood as consisting. So there are two types of cognition. First, one's knowledge of strategies for learning from text, and second, control readers to have their own actions while reading for different purposes. So, the successful readers monitor their reading and the state of their learning. They are also use strategies, adjust effort appropriately, and evaluate the success of their ongoing efforts to understand. So, metacognitive control, in which the leader consciously directs the reasoning process. It is a particular important aspect of strategic reading. When readers are conscious of the reasoning involved in the reading, they can access and apply that reasoning to similar reading in future situations. That would be all, and thank you.
So, good day everyone. My name is Gifford Trampas and this is my assigned topic. So, factors that affect reading performance. What the reader brings to the reading situation or developmental stages is. So, first is background experience. Background experience affect reading performance because if you have background experience of the certain topic you are reading, you are be able to comprehend better the text of what you read and become active readers. Since you have experienced that already or you have real world experiences and literacy knowledge about the topic. So second is knowledge of subject. So knowledge of subject affect reading performance because the more you know about a topic, the easier it is to read a text or understand it and retain the information. So the third one is vocabulary. So vocabulary affect reading performance because it plays a fundamental role in the reading process and contributes greatly to readers' comprehension. So students must be able to comprehend a unfamiliar word and its relationship with other words within a text in order for them to understand what they are reading. So, so if students are unfamiliar with the meanings of words in text, their comprehension will suffer, even if they can decode the words. So, next one is the purpose. So, the key to reading effectively is to always have your purpose in mind. So, you should always know why you are reading and what you want to get from the material. So, identifying our purpose helps us to stay on track and avoid mindless scanning. We can target the relevant information and skim over the rest. Last is motivation and interest. So, motivation and interest has a big impact on student reading performance because if the students have motivation and interest of what they read, they interact with text deeply and gain relatively high amounts of knowledge or improve their reading comprehension. And students could be difficult to understand what they are reading when they don't have interest or the desire to learn about a topic. So, next is the characteristics of the written text or print material. So, first is content. Content is the subject or topics covered in a written work. So, second is format or readability. So, format or readability is a baseline of how to make a written work that have clear heading structure with a clear hierarchy of content. So, readable text affects how users process the information in the content. So, poor format or readability can lead them to misunderstand or misinterpret your ideas. On the other hand, if done correctly, the reader will clearly understand your thoughts and ideas as well as absorb it easily. So, next is concepts. Concepts is the main idea of a text, or it is simply what the text is mostly about. So, next is organization. So, organization refers to how a text is organized or the ideas are well developed to help readers follow and understand the information being presented. So, last is author's purpose. An author's purpose is his reason for or intent in writing. So, an author's purpose may be to amuse the reader, to pursue the reader, to inform the reader, or to satirize a condition. Next is the learning context that defines the task and the purpose of the reader or reading situation. So, first is setting or environment. So, setting or environment is the learning context in which reading occurs or where and how it takes place. So, in reading, are you more successful in a crowded or in uncrowded? So, in school, some students are asked to read in noisy places, which may negatively impact their ability to understand. So next is the second one is task. So task is an activity or piece of work which you have to do, usually after reading. So in which students have to use the target language in order to achieve a specific outcome. So last is outcome. So outcomes are the specific changes in your knowledge. So and skills you expect to occur as a result of your reading. So this is the result. So next is the strategies consciously applied by the reader to obtain meaning. So strategy is a systematic plan consciously adapted and monitored to improve one's performance in learning by Harris, according to Harris and Hodges 1995. So there are strategies that the reader should adopt in order to obtain meaning or to improve their performance in learning. So example, context clause. So context clause are hints found within a sentence or a paragraph that or a paragraph passage that a reader can use to understand the meanings of new or unfamiliar words. So example number 1. Many eleemosynary or philanthropic agencies are helping the poor and disadvantaged people. So the unfamiliar word here is the eleemosynary. So eleemosynary means related to charitable giving. So this hint word, we can easily understand the meaning of the text. The second one is Maricel was very talkative but Rico remained taciturn. So taciturn means a silent person or a not talkative. So the third one is Rini gave his fake ID card to the guard and held his breath. The guard was busy talking to a friend and gave it a perfunctory glance. So Rini breathed normally again. So the unfamiliar word here is perfunctory. So perfunctory means done quickly and without showing that you care or have much interest. Next is structural analysis. So structural analysis is learning strategy that aids students in decoding an unknown word by dividing the word into parts to discover its meaning. So this is a strategy that is used to facilitate decoding as students become more proficient readers. So examples, prolonged fever made the child suffer from dehydration. So from the word dehydration, we are dividing the word dehydration into parts. So hydro means water, de means down or flow, act of, and dehydration means act of drying up. So next is dyslexia or a reading problem. So first is accused related to poor reading. So poor readers may have difficulty decoding and so have difficulty reading the words of their text accurately. So second is brain-based. Reading problem involve specific brain-based difficulties in learning to recognize and convert or understand a printed word. So learning disability are disorders that affect the ability to understand or use spoken or written language, such as letter or word reversal, inability to remember, recall written or spoken directions, inability to recall or remember stories, text recently read, poor spelling and drawing ability, text recently read, poor spelling and drawing ability, difficulty understanding or comprehending written or spoken information, and left and right directionality, and etc. So next is comprehensive neurodevelopment exam. So this is a detailed and comprehensive evaluation of your child's abilities, difficulties, and needs. Next is causes. First is visual perception difficulty. If the students have poor vision, it's hard for them to interpret the information that their eyes see or receive. So, second is auditor perception difficulty. If the student have hearing loss, it's difficult for them to understand sounds including spoken words. So, third is language processing difficulty. So, LPD or language processing difficulty in using language ay DR refers to difficulty in using language to express yourself. So, people with this disorder have difficulty reading, writing, spelling, and even speaking. So, fourth one is ineffective instruction. So, ineffective reading instruction can cause reading problem because it can lead the students to lose their way. Next is correction. So, first is improving left-right directionality, second improving laterality, improving coordination, and last is intensive phonics instruction program. So, laterality and directionality are learned skills. Additionally, understanding directional terms like left, right, top, bottom, above, and etc. So, they are essential to good reading, writing, and fundamental learning skills. So, the third one is improving coordination. So, improving coordination, it helps your child track the movement of their hands with their eyes, which is essential for reading and decoding. So the last one is intensive phonics instruction program. Is designed to increase accuracy in decoding and more and word recognition skills, which in turn to facilitate comprehension. So that should be all. Thank you and God bless.